Holy freaking crap. That may be one of my favorite trailers of all time. What's up, everybody? It's Ghost Robo. I've got my brother Jake here, and today we're talking all about Super Mario Odyssey, the mega Mario epic that was just unleashed upon us in Nintendo's Spotlight. We saw the Spotlight and the gameplay trailer with all of the new elements, and then we watched the Treehouse presentation where they further detailed the game, its mechanics, its entire world. So I think right off the bat, Jake, this trailer, so much more so than the first one, revealed the personality, the uniqueness, and sort of the innovation of this Mario to establish why Switch Mario is different from those of the past.
Yeah, and it unveiled the main mechanical difference to any other Mario, which is that Cappy, his hat, can take over like enemies, and you become the Bullet Bill, you become the Goomba.
Yeah, that was crazy.
They have all their unique mechanics to navigate the world and collect the green, or, well, they're different color in each world, but the moons that replace the stars. So yeah, it definitely has shown us how this new 3D Mario is different in its own unique entity. Yeah,
it's really crazy because, you know, you think, okay, Caps and Mario and different power-ups, so we're like, okay, we see Frog Mario, that's interesting. Okay, we see Sombrero Mario, that's interesting. And then you realize, like, no, like, that's just the beginning, right? There's all these options. And they said in the Treehouse that there are specific enemies that can be capped. Not every single one can be taken over. So you'll have to figure it out. They, in the Treehouse, said it might be that the enemy's a little bigger or something of that sort to decide which ones you can cap. But I thought it was just incredible, the variety they showed of the moves. And outside of the capping of the enemies, there's also his ability to transform into, like, elements, basically. We saw electricity, we saw him transform into like a fireball. That was another super cool new feature.
Yeah, and like rockets, or like a tank that they showed. So he's definitely like becoming a lot of different things to navigate the world and traverse. Another thing that I think is really interesting is they've created these expansive worlds, right? New Donk City, they introduced the dinosaur world. We know there's like a forest. We know there's the sand world that they talked about and then showed in the Treehouse. And like I said before, you're collecting moons instead of stars in this game. And when you collect the star, normally it kicks you out and you have to like restart the level in like Sunshine or Mario 64. And this one, you're just continuing. So you collect the moon and you just keep going and going and going. So they're talking about how it lends itself to explore everything and anywhere that you want and look for things all over the place. Each world has its own currency as well, the purple coins, and they're in different shapes. And they said they really wanted to make each world, each kingdom that you visit, its own distinct thing with its own currency. That's a little bit weird at first, but then you can use it to buy new aesthetic things that, like, we saw buying a hat and poncho allows you to get into a secret room that unlocks a moon for you. And then they also said there's like some decorative pieces that you can decorate your hat ship with. And then you can also use, that's all with the purple money that's specific to each kingdom. And then you can also use your regular yellow coins that carry over from every world to buy other things. They didn't show what those are, but I'm guessing those might be more upgrade-based things, or maybe they are just different aesthetic things that aren't specific to each kingdom. But it is very interesting that they decided to go, instead of more linear objectives in a big round world, they did just an expansive world that you're constantly exploring through and never get really kicked out of and have to restart. You're just continuing through and exploring your own pace to find all the moons in the area until you get to, we saw a boss with a Brutal, which are the bunnies that run their own wedding company that Bowser has hired to plan his wedding. And they say you fight them multiple times, and then when you defeat a Brutal bunny, you get a Grand Moon, which I'm guessing maybe lets you go to the next kingdom, or maybe it just counts for more moons, because they said that your hat ship is powered by moons. So I'm assuming you have to get a certain number of moons in order to travel to the next kingdom and explore that one. So definitely a very similar mechanic in terms of collecting this big star-like feature, but in a very new and very different way.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm zoned out because they just announced a Metroid remake, and Reggie's talking about it. I can't see what exactly he's saying, but people are freaking out because it's the Metroid remake. Anyways, back to Mario. Yeah, it really is the most open world that Mario has ever been, right? Because Sandbox was how we described and how Nintendo described Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and it was like go around, explore in the area, complete the objective, and then get bumped out. This one is much more open in the sense of there are objectives and quests, strewn about, but then you stay in the world like you mentioned. So the moons, it's sort of hard to tell, but the moons to me seem like a little bit more simple than stars in terms of what the requirements are to get them, but maybe there's more of them, we don't really know. And it seems like that also encourages more of a platforming aspect, so it's kind of like a merging of something like Super Mario 3D World and Super Mario 64, right? It's almost like a fusion of those two.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely have elements of both. And it did look a little simplistic, just like Rabbids did yesterday when we played that. But I'm hoping that that's just the demo and that's just the beginning of it, because they did show that you could get like 3 moons within like a 5-minute span, which is not something that you could do. And I hope they do have some more difficult platforming, like I said in earlier discussion videos, like Mario Sunshine and Mario 64, where it took you try after try and you did die a lot. That's another interesting thing. They have a 3-hit system in this Mario Odyssey, and they said there's not a lot of punishment when you die. You only lose 10 coins, and you start relatively close to where you are. There's like checkpoint markers throughout the world, so it's lending itself to that exploration and finding all the moons. And I hope that, like I said, that they get more difficult and more complex. They're not just super simple, that you can easily get them all and find and move on. Because they have created these super intricate, super beautiful, super wide, expansive worlds to explore. And I hope that they do offer up more challenges to do it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves, because you're right, it did look a little easy from what they showed. We saw New Donk City and the, what was it, Tostada Village, and then the Sand World. What was interesting about Tostada Village was that we learned that some of Mario's, like when he caps enemies with Cappy, some of those are like functional, like okay, the bullet ability can fly around. Some of them are acquired just like costumes, right? Or like almost like a Splatoon style, like, you know, purchasing fashion items. So the sombrero that you mentioned, yes, that does help him get in a door, but it's much more...
Tostarino.
Oh, gotcha. That's just something that you can wear. And they also showed...
oh, we didn't even talk about the coolest... The thing that people like were shocked by is they had a Link Between Two Worlds-esque thing, where in the Sand World you went through a pixelated warp pipe and you were turned into 8-bit Mario and plastered on the wall, and then you know, all the enemies become 2D as well, and they showed like a transition where Bullet Bill chasing you in the 2D pixelated on the wall Mario, then can, when that wall ends, becomes a 3D Bullet Bill that then you can like capture and use. So it is very interesting that they are throwing a lot of interesting mechanics into this game, and they have so many unique mechanics: the capturing of enemies, the purchasing of outfits and potentially upgrades, the 8-bit Mario segments, these expansive worlds, that I hope that they can appease to the more hardcore Mario fan base with some more challenging moons and some more hidden things, that it's not just a breeze to run through and you're done, and before you can fully appreciate how complex the world and mechanics that they have created are, because they are super unique. Just like the Rabbids, all the techniques and things, I hope that game gets more difficult, because they do have the groundwork there to make it incredible. And I think Mario Odyssey, I have faith in Nintendo that they won't botch it and they won't make it just a breeze to run through and you're done. But it definitely should ramp up, and I'm excited to see what the Dino World has. I mean, can't maybe become a T-Rex Mario like that? What is that?
Yeah.
That is like unheard of.
Well, it's about pushing the boundaries, and I feel like that's what Switch is doing for a lot of these franchises, right? We saw Breath of the Wild evolve and push Zelda in new ways that we had never experienced, and I feel like Mario's doing that as well. And it seems like they unleashed ultimate creativity. And you know, people were saying like, okay, is this going to be more Galaxy style, more 3D World style, more Sunshine style? And it seems like it has like a mixture of all. And we noticed in the New Donk City segment especially, very vastly different gameplay styles. So at one moment you're just platforming and you're trying to collect these different musicians for Paulina's orchestra, her band, and then in another section you're doing more of like a 2D platforming segment where you're climbing up these different girders and whatnot, and then in others you were having to use your capabilities to help explore new parts of the world. So it seems like they're going to unify a lot of different Mario elements. You know, like you mentioned, the Link Between Worlds one, which that blew my mind. It's so cool to see like Nintendo kind of, I feel like they're building almost more of a community around their development studios and incorporating elements. Like, that's really great. That's something we see from a lot of other publishers, and it's nice to see like cool stuff like crossing over. Okay, so the Link Between Worlds, one of the awesome parts was seeing Link just running on the walls, and now Mario's here. But I love this fusion of different elements. Now, I do wonder, Jake, you know, Mario 64, caps were a big deal. And just in general, as the first 3D Mario. Mario Sunshine had the flood as the main mechanic. Galaxy was all about space and the gravity mechanic. Do you think that Cappy is a big enough mechanic to sort of carry a full game?
I think so, because it's not just Cappy. It's Cappy utilizing the T-Rex, utilizing the frog, utilizing bullet bills, utilizing the Goomba stacking ability. So it's Cappy kind of borrowing the mechanics from every enemy that they've created throughout the history of Mario, which creates vast opportunities and is just a plethora of abilities that you can use. And again, they have that, and it's such a fun-looking mechanic, and there's so much you can do with it that I just hope that it becomes more complicated and more. There are moons that are tricky and difficult and take try after try to complete the platforming or the skill-based challenge with those very fun, unique mechanics. Because, like you said, it can't carry the game. I think so because it's borrowing from all the creations that they've had and new creations like frogs and dinosaurs, which I can't believe that they threw like a real looking T-Rex
and like a person. You can take
you can become a New Donk citizen.
That's insane. Yeah, I think the puzzle elements of Cappy are going to be interesting to see how that progresses. Because it's like, okay, obviously if there's a gap and there's a Bullet Bill there, you take over Bullet Bill and you cross the gap. But maybe later on there will be elements where like, okay, you have to get something from one part of a level and bring it over to this part of the level to accomplish sort of that platforming segment, or, you know what I'm saying, where it sort of expands upon the fact that there are multiple options to cap instead of just capping what's in front of your eyes. I think that is something that could be really cool. And, we saw basics like capping a Goomba or capping a Bullet Bill, but perhaps later on there's more complex capping. I'm thinking of things like in Yoshi's Island, how you eventually take over and control different like vehicles and machines. I wonder if there's a little bit of that where then there's some segments that are almost vehicle-based, or there's some segments that are very like, how in Mario Sunshine they had sort of those extra platforming, like the super tough platforming challenges where you transport into a very plain world that was just like platforming. Maybe there'll be some where you have to cap into something specific to accomplish a platforming challenge, and it's a little trickier, like kind of like almost like different varied levels of difficulty depending on what you want. And I'm also curious, and maybe you know a little more about this, the moons and like how the linearity of the game is. Like, is it that you can explore any kingdom as you see fit, or is it they mention like you need a certain number of moons to access a new kingdom? So I wonder if it's going to be one kingdom at a time, or if you can kind of go amongst them.
I think that it's going to be you have to defeat the boss at the end to get to the next one.
Because that was a grand moon.
Right, so you get that grand moon, and I think that will allow you access to the next one. I think then you can always backtrack to get more moons. So let's say you got only like 10 out of 25 moons in New Donk City, and then you moved on to the Toast Arena, and then you needed more moons to get to the third world. You could go back and to New Donk City and get more moons from there.
Interesting.
So they didn't officially state that, but that's kind of what I garnered from it, and I think that's how it's gonna work. So it's sort of a little bit of both of you can explore at your own pace, and maybe there's like options of where you can go next. But there's also some linearity, I think, because they do have those bosses with the Grand Moons. It's not just another star, like in Mario 64, where you fought a boss and you just got the same star that you did when you got up to the top of the mountain. So there definitely is a distinction that there's an end boss that gives you a Grand Moon, so that has to be like moving on to the next world.
Yeah, and they were reluctant to show the hub world. They switched between levels via just going back to the main menu, so that was interesting to note. They also mentioned that the Brutals, which is an interesting name for a Nintendo boss, but the Brutals, the bunnies, are going to be fought multiple times. So that's an element kind of from Super Mario 3D World, where the bosses are recycled, but he did say that there would be new elements, new mechanics, new weapons for the Brutals as you fight them again.
Yeah, and it looked like very much like Mario Galaxy bosses, and the one that they showed looked very easy, and it was the second world, I'm assuming, because I'm assuming New Donk is the first, but I really hope that they do scale up a lot with that increase each time you fight them, that they get more and more difficult with more complex patterns to learn. But overall, I'm super excited to play it. It looks incredibly fun. I just hope that it lives up to the difficulty that I'm looking for. But even if it's not, they have so many different and unique mechanics that have never been seen in a Mario game before, plus pulling in things like the 8-bit Mario gameplay sections and other things, that it's like a totally new game that takes pieces of old games and puts them together and adds a new flavor. Like having currency in a Mario game is just unheard of before. Like that, it's a small thing and you don't really notice a lot because there's so much other stuff going on, but it is like a huge step for Mario.
Well, I feel like in general, besides being a new platform, the Switch is about switching up their franchises, right? And we saw that with Zelda. Now we're seeing it with Mario. You could even, if you wanted to use it in Fire Emblem, like switching that to Fire Emblem Warriors. I feel like that is something that they're really focused on. It's great to see innovation beyond just the controls and the the platform, but also the mechanics of the games, also the style of the game, also what that franchise meant and how it now is going to be sort of revitalized or reinvigorated for a new era, and you're bringing this bold, big new Mario. And for some people, it'll be their first Mario. New Switch owners. Some people will be their 10th Mario. But I love the fact that no matter what, I feel like it's an exciting one. I feel like that trailer did a great job of capturing what makes this Super Mario Odyssey awesome, and the fact that it's coming October 27th is great.
They have so many, like, it's just one after another. They have ARMS, Splatoon, then they have
Mario Rabbids,
then Mario Odyssey, like
Pokken.
Yeah, that's crazy. They have so many big, like, people who are like, oh, Switch doesn't have any big games. Like, that's a lot of like big hits back to back to back to back, one month after another.
And we can talk about sort of the third-party support and if that's going to be there, but I think Nintendo knew the first year they were going to have to carry things. And so they did it. And Mario Odyssey is sort of that tentpole for the holiday season, and I think it is going to be absolutely epic. So let us know what you think of Super Mario Odyssey down in the comments below. How did you feel about the trailer? If you got to see more of the gameplay in the treehouse, let us know your impressions about that. I hope you're having an exciting and awesome E3. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button if you're pumped for Mario. Let us know in the comments down below, and I'll be bringing you more E3 goodies as soon as I can. Until that time, thanks so much, Jake, for being here. Thank you guys for being here. I love you all. Drink some hot chocolate. Thanks again, and we'll see you all later.